Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some paper 2 questions. I'm going to skip the resource booklet and let's just, okay, here's one about agriculture and linking it to productivity. I've skipped one up here, 2. Okay, negative and positive feedback. Oh, using examples for environmental systems. Okay, so that's quite easy. I can give some kind of example. World population growth. Slow. Okay. Okay, so how will the population stabilize? Development policies. All right, and is the vegetarian diet better for the environment? Okay, I mean, I'm pretty sure I can answer that one. Pyramid of numbers, pyramid of productivity, so this links to ecosystems. Pollution management strategies. Right, well this one's quite easy because I've got 3 pollution management strategies and it's talking about eutrophication, but because of the pollution management model, so I've got reduce, manage, and clean up. Okay, so I can think about those 3 strategies with regards to eutrophication. There's 2 sort of things per strategy, and that should get me there. And the environmental impact of 2 named food production systems. So I could kind of talk about 2 different food production systems, like fish farms and rice production, something along those lines. Right, isolation and natural selection. Okay, so islands and speciation. Transfer of energy through an ecosystem, any ecosystem, so that's quite easy. And named endangered species. Okay, so this one looks really quite straightforward. Name my endangered species. Oh, mass extinctions in the fossil record. That's quite hard, isn't it? We have to remember it's very specific information. Okay, but they're not asking me for specific information. They're asking me to compare extinctions within historic times, like the dodo, and the mass extinctions in the fossil record. The models, evaluate the use of models for predicting climate change, okay. Tundra ecosystems, the response of 2 contrasting environmental value systems. So I'm thinking about 2 value systems like technocentric, ecocentric, to the effects of global warming. So how would they respond? How would a technocentric respond to the effect of global warming on the tundra? I think this is a really hard question because we've got to think about the tundra and the biome, and we've got to think about the effects of global warming on that particular biome, and then also we've got to contrast 2 environmental systems. So like that can be really easy for me to get off track if I try and answer that question. So I'm actually going to leave that one. I'll probably answer it for you guys, but just in terms of you seeing how I'm going to pick the questions, I'm going to start with the easiest one for me, which is down here. This is the role of isolation in natural selection. So question 4, and we're just going to go through this quickly. Role of isolation in natural selection. When populations are isolated, genes can no longer be exchanged. The isolated populations, they experience different environments, even subtle differences. Okay, one side it's slightly wetter, ever so slightly wetter than the other side of a river. So the 2 populations change slightly in response to their different environments, because mating cannot occur, the adaptations in one population are not transferred to the other population. And then they're just like random mutations over time will also accumulate. so that eventually, even if the populations are reunited, they will be so different they can no longer mate to produce viable, okay, so fertile offspring, and could therefore be considered different species. Okay, I noticed that it says in natural selection, so I think I've got it. I mean, when I get down here, this is actually, now we're talking about speciation, but here we're talking about adaptations. We're talking about adaptations to the environment. So I think that's it. All right. I'm going to move this out the way now. Go on. Bye-bye. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about transfer of energy through an ecosystem. So energy enters ecosystem almost all the time via the sun, right? So the example where it doesn't is deep sea thermal vents, where the energy is coming in from the center of the earth. Okay, so we're only going to consider ones at the sun because it's more common, it's easy to talk about. Energy is fixed. Actually, no. Light energy is converted. I think I'm going to go back even further. I'm just looking where it says the transfer of energy. So I'm going to focus on the transfers and the transformations, but I want to make sure I just go transfer by transfer. Okay, so energy from the sun enters the atmosphere as light energy. Okay, because it's light that travels to us. As it travels through our atmosphere, it is converted to thermal energy. Okay, some of it is. When light energy strikes the Earth's surface, it is either reflected or absorbed. Some of it will strike the surface of leaves that can use light energy in the process of photosynthesis, where they fix atmospheric carbon into carbohydrates, in particular glucose. The energy is therefore now chemical energy, and some will have been lost as heat or reflected. So we lost some energy from the system, and only a small amount of it has been transferred. Okay, and then heat or reflected. Okay, now chemical energy in the plant can be transferred to chemical energy in a primary consumer, herbivore, and so on up the food chain. Energy is transformed from chemical to heat energy via the process of respiration in plants and animals, and again is lost to the atmosphere. Okay, and then the animal eventually is going to die, so chemical energy in the animal will eventually be converted to chemical energy in decomposers, and but some things I want to get in here is that energy is constantly being lost from this system. right? In the form of heat energy, which is why food chains are only limited in length. Eventually, the original incoming energy from the sun is all lost as heat energy to the surrounding atmosphere and is dissipated. In other words, this becomes more and more spread out. Energy must constantly enter the system as light energy in order for an ecosystem to maintain its integrity and not just break down and become a bunch of rotting nothing. Alright, so I got that one. How am I doing on time here? So 11 minutes now. A named endangered species. Okay, what shall I pick? Is it like the barbelled catfish? Something like that, right? In the Mekong River. Now, is it bar-bellied catfish? Anyway, I'm not sure if I'm going to pick that one because I don't actually know that much about its biology, but I do know a lot about the Mekong. But why it should be conserved. Okay, I think I can do this. Okay, so this is a very large species. It's charismatic. Okay, charismatic. And it occurs in only one location on the planet. So it is extremely unique. Okay, I would love to see one. Wouldn't you guys love to see one? Like one of these giant catfish would be amazing. Okay, and so everyone's going to call it the giant catfish. I don't know if it is the barbelled catfish. That one that went extinct. So giant catfish, Mekong River. It's charismatic. It's unique. It has also been an important source of food for villages along the Mekong. And I'll come back to these values in a minute. So we value it for its uniqueness, we value it because it's charismatic, it's this big catfish that we can, it's really cool to see it, and it's also, valued as an actual resource, as a food type, and it's part of the ecosystem. So we can discuss those values towards the end. The reason why it's endangered, so I've named it now. Why is it endangered? It is endangered because of, essentially increased demand on hydropower and the installation of more and more dams along the Mekong River. Most of the fish living in the river need to travel up and downstream in order to reproduce. So the dams have limited the mobility of the catfish. Okay, and then I think as well, with lowered numbers, the pressure from hunting the catfish, fishing it, is obviously greater and adds to its endangered status. So some attempts have been made to include fish ladders as part of these dams, but they have so far been inadequate to